Bonjour, hi, and welcome back to another episode of Matthew's Always Wrong. And today we got a lot of great news stories I want to get over, especially now how war is back, and I'm really excited. Terrorism is the new, Fortnite. Ever since Fortnite died, terrorism is now back, and very excited. The Middle East is the new Tilted Towers, but before we get to that story, there's a few other things I want to talk about. The first one being, is Zimbabwe now based? Zimbabwe launching a new gold-backed currency. This is the first time I see, a currency backed by a real asset, not just backed by an idea of, an economy, US dollar. But so they just launched a few weeks ago a new currency called the ZiG, which stands for Zimbabwean gold. When you hear currency about Zimbabwe, what do you think of? Oh, did they just drop a new $100 trillion, bill? That's normally what has happened. They've launched, I think since 2008, like 9 failed currencies. These guys cannot seem to make a good currency. Lately, the inflation rate on the previous currency that was out was at, 55%. Inflation in March hitting 55%, while the value of the old, Zimbabwean dollar has dropped down by 75% this year. For context, since 2020, the US dollar has lost 25% of its value. And that is, a lot of inflation. It's what happens when you print trillions and trillions of dollars. But these people, they're, historically, Zimbabwe hasn't been doing too well. Anyways, this currency, it's not that big of a news because 85% of all transactions in the country are already taking place with US dollar, right? They're taking place with US dollar or the South African dollar. So what the central bank is seeing is that they're thinking that as people, this currency, the ZiG, will become more and more impactful and will, take up a bigger place in the economy. Also by the fact that, they're forcing companies to pay at least half their income taxes or half their corporate taxes in the ZiG. So, when you force people to use a currency, I think they'll start using it, right? It's currently backed by roughly $285 million in gold. That ain't enough. We'll say that. Experts saying that, collapse is very likely because it's not like a one-to-one backing, right? It's barely enough money to keep the imports coming in. It's barely enough money to actually have enough liquidity in the system to back the dollar. So, listen, this is a great step. This is what we need. We need more countries to start reverting back to the gold standard. Because ever since everyone dropped the gold standard, it's a lot easier to print money. It turns out it's hard to print trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars with essentially no backing when, you need to have a dollar-to-dollar conversion into the actual asset. But everyone goes, well, in 1973 when Nixon dropped the gold standard, that was the collapse. I don't think so. I think that the gold standard was already on its way out way before that. It was on its way out since the Second World War when, FDR made it illegal for US citizens to own gold. That's just how it works. So what they do is they confiscate all the gold. They stop people from, letting them own it and then actually trade in gold for currency for gold. And then it's kind of this idea. And then over time, it becomes less and less powerful, and then boom, you've got deficit spending, you've got trillions of debt, and you've got a currency backed by essentially the military, maybe the price of oil, maybe, but it's backed by this idea that the US government is able to pay back everything. That's just how it works. So Zimbabwe is not the US dollar. Zimbabwe isn't America. And to get away with this, they would have to prove over a long-term period, not only fiscal responsibility, but an ability to not literally collapse the entire country. if this was the entire, if 100% of the currency in Zimbabwe was done with the ZIG, maybe it works, but they don't have enough gold to back it. They're not a rich enough country, and they historically have been horrendous with their currencies. In 2008, hyperinflation happened in Zimbabwe where the $100 trillion bill was introduced. Right? And that $100 trillion was worth like 50 cents or something. It was, it's not a good period of time. It was Weimar Germany all over again. Will this be better? It depends how the leaders take it. This could become a very good thing. And I do want to see more countries adopting these measures. But will Zimbabwe be the spearheader of this campaign? I don't think so. We need a more developed country to get back on the gold standard, maybe an oil standard, maybe something that has real world value. That's it. My next few stories are kind of, again, I'm a little late on these, but I think they're important to talk about. Talking about trans issues. Ew, no, I'm kidding, but my first story is how England banned puberty blockers for anyone under the age of 18. At first, it was just the NHS, the NHS, sorry, which is the free healthcare system in Britain. At first, they were the only ones who banned puberty blockers for anyone under 18. But now they're also saying that private health institutions also have to abide by these laws because they don't want to create a two-tiered, access to drugs. This is also a pretty base move. I think it is truly outrageous that you give kids who don't know what they want, kids below the age of 18s are not mentally developed enough. If you don't let these people vote, you don't let these people drink, why should they be able to get puberty blockers or hormone therapies that'll affect them for the rest of their lives? And then people go, well, no, it's fully reversible. It's not. Not only have they not done enough long-term research, there's been several clinical studies that have proved that they're not as reversible as originally thought. But so they're saying that doctors are essentially cashing in on young, confused kids for money. That's right. These drugs are really profitable. They make real money off these drugs, which are essentially castrizing kids. And then people go, well, a 16-year-old should be able to do it. Here's the issue. It's not just 16-year-olds doing it. They're prescribing these to 13-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds. People say, no, that's not real. It's true. That's what they do. They prescribe them extremely young, and they go, it's real quick, by the way. You go in one time, you'll get prescribed testosterone, you'll get prescribed all these things. Because it's such a moneymaker. These people make bank off of treating this, these mental illnesses. Just for context of how much this has risen in the past few years, between 2011 and 2013, there were roughly 500 referrals for puberty blockers or, trans surgeries or whatever. By 2020 to 2022, that number shot up to 6,000 referrals, roughly 6,000 referrals. So you can see this mental health crisis has been expanding greatly over the period of time, and then this kind of goes into the second sub-story in this, is that a new study found that suicide attempts for people after transitioning are twice as high as normal people, right? Or cisgendered people, right? It's not that, this is the cure. The cure is not transitioning. These people have histories of mental health issues, and these are serious problems. There's a mental health crisis where young, confused people get put down echo chambers through Instagram, through TikTok, through YouTube, and through, this woke ideology in communities. And then what happens? They get pushed to do these surgeries, which could very possibly be life-altering and have radical consequences in the future, right? One of the drugs that were given for puberty blockers, called Lupron, I believe, is used for chemical castration, of pedophiles. It's literally a drug to chemically castrate people, and they're giving it to kids going, this is reversible. Another thing saying that 48.5% of LGBT people seek mental health treatment compared to 22.5% for normal people. Again, it just goes to prove that this is a crisis, but it's not a crisis where, big government's trying to stop you from changing your identity and being your true self, right? It's not that. It's you've got hundreds of thousands of people with severe mental issues, which get put down echo chambers, which then exacerbates the issue. You've got confused kids, and you've got all these other inputs. It's all money. It's all about power. It's all about, right? And then you push these people into doing these drugs, into doing these surgeries that maybe they wouldn't have made if they were, they had a fully developed prefrontal cortex. But it's outrageous. You don't let people shoot guns. You don't let people vote. You don't let people, under the age of 18, you don't let them do these things, but then they'll let you, right? They'll let you take these drugs. They'll let you take chemically castrating drugs. It is truly monstrous that a so-called doctor, these are real doctors though, that's the scariest part. These real doctors see a 12-year-old, girl going, yeah, let's get you on some puberty blockers and get you on some testosterone. And then they end up shaving their head, it goes blue, and then they start barking at people. That's the pipeline. And it's a very short period of time, and a lot of this ideology is happening in late high school, but mostly colleges, universities, across almost every developed country, right? So I gotta condemn, shout out to England for doing this. This is, I think, a growing trend. Alberta has also been considering these things, as well as Prime Minister candidate Pierre Poilievre, who has stated that it is, it's bad to have, it's not a good thing to have kids under the age of 18 be able to, get these drugs. So, I think this is the right direction we need to move in. And then everyone will go, you're transphobic. You don't want people to, get their identity, their real, who they feel in the inside. No, you've got 10-year-olds who think they're dinosaurs. That's the reality of the situation. These people aren't fully developed. These kids need to be protected. And any doctor who wants to hurt these kids, essentially, should be put in prison. They should be banned. Because it's not moral to be prescribing these things to kids. 100%. Then you've got this new study out of Finland, which I died laughing, by the way. It's a new study. This was reported by the New York Post. A study of roughly 5,000 participants, which looked at woke people. What do they mean by woke people? Well, they found that there were 7 identifiable truisms of wokeism, right? Of woke people. So these are what they believe, right? 1, if white people have, on average, a higher level of income than black people, it is because of racism. University reading lists should include fewer whites or European authors. Microaggressions should be challenged often and actively. Trans women who compete with women's sports are not helping women's rights. We don't need to talk more about the color of people's skin, but here's the thing, they say this, but that a white person cannot understand how black people feels equally well as another black person. A member of a privileged group can adopt features or cultural elements of less privileged groups. It's, they all go, I don't care about race, when literally everything is built off of race, right? Not based. Everything they do is essentially, black people have been oppressed, so we gotta hurt the whites, we gotta hurt the Asians. That's what affirmative action's all about, right? Push down the Asians because they're doing too good. Push up the blacks, right? These are the things, so these are the 7 truisms that they defined as a woke person, right? And here's what they found. Higher levels of anxiety and depression for woke people, and more broadly, left-wing people who have left-wing ideologies are more likely to report lower mental well-being. These people are mentally unstable, right? It is a serious issue, and I think it is a disease. It's a propagating disease that spreads real quickly, and it's real strong, because you say anything about it, you're a bigot, you're a transphobe, you're a racist, you're a colonizer, you're an oppressor, you know. The fact that, you know, you don't want biological men playing in women's sports, you piece of shit. You should kill yourself, right? These are the things that they're talking about, and I just love how funny this is, that you've got all these woke people who are just sad because they have, in their mind, they've created a white guilt, right? A lot of these woke people are just white liberal women, right? Or like gay men. But all these like white liberal women, they all tell themselves, they go, I'm the problem, I'm a colonizer, I'm actively oppressing, I've got white privilege. What do you think that's going to do to your mental state when you constantly tell yourself, or are reminded in a group of people, that you're the problem, that everything you do is the problem, and you have to essentially dedicate your entire life to helping up a different ethnic group, right? The whole point of, you know, the civil rights movement was equality, just like the feminism movement was equality. And we've achieved that. Are there racist people? Yes. Are there sexist people? Yes. Are there trans? Yes. There's all these homophobes, right? There's all these types of people, right? Just like how there are communists, there are Nazis out there. There will continue to be. We will never get rid of every single person, right? But to say that this small group of, let's say, racists have perpetuated a system of systemically oppressing minorities is truly an outrageous statement. Have you been to an African country? Right? I think a black person in Canada is probably better off than a black person in the Congo. Right? When you work in mines in Canada or in America, you do it in machineries. When you do it in the Congo, you're half naked and picking lithium with your hands in toxic chemicals. As a slave too. So this whole idea, and then they'll tweet these things going, take down the patriarchy on their iPhone, right? White men are they're the worst. Who do you think invented everything? Who do you think is giving you the platform to speak? Everything in North America, everything in most of Europe was almost exclusively created by white men. That's the reality of the situation. So these people, they're truly mentally unwell, and they're so vehement about this movement, right? They're so attached to this idea that, they have to keep, quote unquote, it's all virtue signaling. Look how good I am, because I know I'm privileged, so I'm helping, these minorities. And if you say anything to the contrary or that doesn't fit the narrative, they'll attack you. And comes to my next story. This is also old, but Libs of TikTok is some woman on X, formerly Twitter, who I really enjoy. She essentially just goes around taking screenshots of all these weirdo trans people. I'm not saying all trans people are, I'm just saying, weirdos, not exposing them, but just showing it off, and then everyone gets mad at her because they're like, you're making fun of them. You're putting it out there. But anyways, so she reports on this story that some non-binary kid named Nex, N-E-X, I think she was destined to fail from the beginning, but some 16-year-old girl died. And then everyone started blaming her. It was truly outrageous. They all started screaming and sending death threats and bomb threats to this woman, because they go, it's people like you who are perpetrating a culture of discriminating against trans people. You're allowing them to get bullied. So everyone believed that the 16-year-old girl died because she was bullied to death, right? She got beaten. She was bullied, then she got beaten because she was non-binary. And then she had to go to the hospital and she died. That's what they were saying. And then they were sending death threats to this woman. They were retweeting this woman. They were going, she's the worst. She needs to be deplatformed. Because that's one of the pillars, right? If you don't like what they're saying, what someone's saying, they need to be deplatformed because they're a threat to democracy. They're a threat to insert minority rights here. Trans rights, black rights, Hispanic rights, whatever the fuck it is, right? So you have to deplatform these people. You got to threaten them. But if you get threatened, then it's an issue. It's such a double standard. And these people can't see it. Or maybe they do see it. I don't know because I don't understand their minds. They're just extreme narcissists who think that they deserve everything and that everyone's out to get them. That's the reality of the situation. So this girl next, this non-binary 16-year-old, at first, all the media and everyone, all the reports go, yeah, she was bullied, she was beaten in the bathroom, and then, she died. Turns out, gets revealed, it was a suicide, right? So there's video footage where apparently after the fight, where she was unconscious and, on the verge of death, she goes to the hospital and there's a video of her talking to the doctor. The doctor's she's having a full-blown conversation. She's fully awake. She's talking to the doctor. And it was like she started the fight too, by the way, right? It's not like this person is without fault. She started the fight. Yeah, the fight didn't kill her. Let's just say that. That didn't kill her. And then as it goes on later in the doctor, she passes out. She goes unconscious. And then she dies. Well, guess what happened? It was basically a suicide. She overdosed on Prozac and Benadryl. And this just goes to prove my previous point. She was on Prozac. She was on an antidepressant. These people are not mentally well. And that's the issue. It's not that for the first time in history, everyone's now trans. It's not that. It's that you've got these social media companies pushing this idea to these young, impressionable kids that they can do whatever they want, and that by magically cutting off your dick, you will be whole again. Cut off your tits, you will feel happy again. When every statistic proves no, and these drugs have been linked to not being good. They're not, these ideal drugs, but so she overdoses on Prozac and Benadryl. People, I literally looked this up on X like 5 minutes before starting this. People are still attacking libs of TikTok. They're still attacking her. And they're going, some news story came out by some leftist organization. What if I'm next, right? And it's like a warning to all trans people that, you're going to get beaten in the bathroom. She died of a suicide. And by the way, all these people who send death threats, even once they're proven wrong, these people can't backtrack because that's what they do. They can't apologize. They can't go, well, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I didn't get all the facts right. Right? I'm sorry, I wasn't educated. No. You idiot. You think they're going to backtrack? Who do you think you are? No, what they do is they either double down and they go, well, maybe in this case, whatever, right? But she was still bullied. She was still... And there's so many other people who are being bullied and they're being murdered. It's a trans genocide. It's like Gaza in the high schools. But, right? So they can't backtrack and they don't. And then either they'll push the same narrative but with a different story. Or they'll just, they'll double down and go, you're still a problem even though I was proven wrong. You're the issue, right? So it's truly an issue. It's an epidemic, honestly, of unwell people. And we need to fix this. This is a mental health problem. It's not a trans issue. Instead of maybe, getting these people to these liberal therapists who then go, you know what? Yeah, let's do a little choppy chop. That'll fix you. That'll fix ya. Little snip, little chop. Little, That's what they go, that's the solution for all your problems. I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say so. Because then the second anyone does anything, the second anyone does a quote-unquote microaggression, We need to challenge them and actively, right? Like, what these people are truly. University reading lists should include fewer white or European authors. Why isn't science based off of, making the best science, making the best pieces of scientific reading literature or university literature? White people have, on average, higher incomes than blacks. It's because of racism. Or maybe it's because, the black community has, a culture where 75% of households don't have a father figure, or where there's gang violence, and then since defunding the police, there's no more accountability, so there's no more businesses who want to invest in the communities because they always keep getting robbed, and then the second they leave, they get called racist because they're leaving, because they're not profitable, because everyone keeps robbing them. But no, I'm sorry. I need to check my privilege. It's because of racism. It's because of systemic racism. That's why, we don't need to talk more about the color of people's skin. And yet, it's because of racism, right? A white person cannot understand how a black person feels equally as well as another black person, right? But you can be racist to white people. That's fine, because you can't be racist to an oppressor. You can't be racist to a colonizer. It's just odd that, a lot of these African countries were better off when the colonial powers were in charge. That's just a fact. A lot of these countries, when the French were in the charge, were the British in charge, economically they were doing a little bit better than they are now, 200-300 years later. Look at Haiti. Look at Haiti. Now, I'm not saying all these things were good. Yeah, slavery's bad. I agree. But who were the first people to get rid of slavery? It was the British. Then America fights one of their bloodiest battles to get rid of slavery. Right? To say that all white people are the issue, yeah, historically we've been problematic, but we've also been, the least problematic. White people overall, I believe, have been a net. I'm not saying any race is better. I'm just saying that to literally say one race is worse than the other is racist. This is by definition racism. We've gone so far past the feminist movement and so far past the civil rights movement that now, we're oppressing women by letting men play in women's sports. And it's not a good thing. I don't want my doctor to have graduated university with like a 3.0 GPA because of affirmative action, instead of having an Asian doctor who didn't get the chance because he's Asian. It's literally racist against. It's just racism it's repackaged racism. That's all it is. My final story for tonight, because I don't have enough time to go over Israel and Iran, which I'm very excited for. I'm a staunch supporter of Hamas. But not Palestine, Hamas, by the way. But so the UN Security Council, I believe a couple weeks ago, passed an immediate ceasefire resolution during Ramadan, right? Going, release all the hostages, let humanitarian aid in, and do a ceasefire. And that's the issue here. The problem is that all these ceasefire previously, these propositions of ceasefire, have not had a contingency to release the hostages, right? So every time Israel goes, yo, let's do a ceasefire, but you got to release the hostages, Hamas goes, nah, G, it's chill, right? That's what they do. And I think I got an idea why. I don't think there are any hostages alive. I'm going to be honest. All the hostages that are still there, I think 3/4 are probably dead. I think that's the reality of the situation. And it's truly horrible because you got Americans in there, you got Canadians, you got a lot of Israelis. It's not a good situation. It's not good. It is a terrorist group. Hamas is a terrorist group. You can't say that. Yeah, they are, right? They're on the same level as Hezbollah. They're literally connected to Hezbollah, right? They're all terrorist groups. No, but the Palestinians and the Gaza, who do you think voted for Hamas to get in power? That's all I'm saying. I'm not on any side. I truly don't care. But, now they're going, we need humanitarian aid in Gaza because it's a humanitarian disaster, right? In what war in the history of humanity has humanitarian aid been the number one priority for the attacking country to give to the country that's been attacked? You think in World War II, they're just sending, their top priority was sending aid to German Nazi civilians? You think it was that? No, because it's never happened. It's just these people who I truly believe just hate Israel. I think they're all anti-Jewish. I think they're all anti-Semites, probably. Look, it's a long conflict that's extremely complicated between the two states. And both sides are on the wrong. I'm not saying any side's in the right. Both sides are 100% in the wrong. But, Israel should be able to attack. Maybe don't, kill 1,000 people on like one of Judaism's most important holidays. Maybe think a little bit, all right? I'm just saying, if terrorists thought a little bit more, maybe they'd have better results. Maybe, if they stop caring about trans rights and they start, if Hamas stopped caring about trans issues, maybe they'd win this war. That's Hamas is too woke for their own sake, and that's the issue. But, next episode, I definitely want to get into the whole Israel-Hezbollah crisis and this whole war, because there's been a lot of developing news, and yeah, we'll get that as soon as I possibly can. Anyways, that's all I have for today. Shout out to all the trans people who are going to scream at, quote-unquote colonizers. I support you. I support screaming at the colonizers. Throw your coffee at me. But yeah, that's all I got for today. Thank you for listening as usual, and we'll catch you next time.